Episode 288 of the Midnight in the Bay podcast. I'm your host, Alex Woody. I got guest Mean Dave. Are you freaking kidding me, guy? And he's got multiple Mean Daves in front of him. You're a triplet or a quadruplet?
Something like that. This is the committee in my head. I made this background on purpose because I hate these photos.
I love them.
Yeah, a lot of people do. But I never wear this sweater unless it's to funerals. And I was in order to do a gig that never happened. And I don't want to name the person because she's really cool, and I get what she was trying to do, but in the promotion, and believe me, it totally helped me. But in the promotion, in the build up for the promotion of a show that I already predicted was not going to happen because her and this producing partner of hers, I knew the other guy, and I'm like, they're not going to get along. This gig's never going to happen. However, I got a free professional headshot run out of it, and which meant I'm gonna have to take some photos that I probably don't like these, but I got to take some photos that I do like, and those are the ones that I use. But when I did her podcast, I made this as the background of all three of the takes that because she loved these shots. She used the one that I think I'm smiling. The one right there that I'm smiling. She liked that one the most. So,
like, if you know Mean Dave, this is the most hilarious thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, well, no, it's not. There's worse. I have worse.
There's worse.
I haven't made it a background. I've shared it with my closest friends because they're funny. They're embarrassing as fuck. I did a photo shoot for this class that was teaching me about how to audition for commercial work, and the Cozarts, Steve and Laurie Cozart, they're very cool people. I still know them. I'm still friends with them, and they had a bargain of a class to give you, like, if they deemed that if they saw potential in your ability to get print work, which is like work in, anytime you see an ad on BART, on the bus, on anything.
I want to see you on BART.
No, this wasn't on BART. These were the shots that we took to appeal to people who do those kinds of ads. And I have a card with 4 different photos on it that are hilariously embarrassing. I don't have my facial hair. They told me to shave. And then when I showed up, they were like, "Where's your beard?" I'm like, "God damn it, you told me to shave." And now we're already set to do the shots that day. So, and there was the School of Rock shot that we took with my guitar dressed up like kind of like my version of Angus Young from AC/DC, where I'm in like a.
Oh, like no, don't tell me you're wearing short shorts.
I'm not wearing shorts, but I'm wearing like a nice shirt and a nice basically I bought these clothes that were going to be returned just for this shoot. These were some of those clothes. And I mean, it's just shit I never wear. They're doing product in my hair. My hair is cut shoulder length. It looks so stupid. And then I did another shot. The best shot in it is me in the suit looking like Rodney Dangerfield style. I got a full suit with the red tie and my hair.
I'm telling you. They call me Mean Dave.
I'm not looking that nervous, but I'm saying it's my Rodney shot. But it's my hair slicked back. Like, I never slicked back my hair. And then these are like 4 photos that are totally not natural to how I am. The other shot was me in scrubs to look like, some working
nurse.
Like hospital professional.
If I say nurse and I see you, I'm scared.
If you saw this version of me, you'd be like, "Oh, that's bitch Dave." Yeah, he could handle nursing. And I'm not saying, hey, nurses are hardcore, man. I got friends that are nurses, and That's not bitch work, man. And then the last one is me. This is the one that's the most embarrassing. It's me as a generic sports fan, and I got like a foam finger and I'm in a hot dog sitting in the stand of I mean, if I knew we were going to talk about it, I would have brought it out so you could just see it in my little video. Nina G has one I gave her for Christmas one year. She has it up on her fridge. I've hooked up people with it that, like, you know, like I said, good friends that I know won't, like, you know, throw me under the bus for a cheap laugh, but you know, if you're cool with me and I'm cool with you, I'll hook you up with one. So they're funny. If you know me, they're so like, they're so not like, oh yeah. So then the image of me is I'm holding a hot dog, I got a foam finger, and I'm like, yeah, like that. So I don't do that. I'm not that. I love going to sporting events, but I don't look like that, Adam, unless somebody's getting hurt, you know. So
I can't even not laugh without looking at the picture to the left of you.
what do you mean?
The one you smiling. I can't even
I know.
look up.
They're so fucking. That's what I'm saying. The one in the middle is exactly how I felt.
Oh, that's you.
Like,
the one in the middle is you.
Can we move this along?
Yeah.
And and even the eyes up the sky, like, you know. But that one, yeah, me smiling. That was. Plus, I never hang over chairs with.
I want to see you filmed during one of these like photo shoots. Like I want to see me and Dave in a comedy photo shoot and what that's like.
It's not that interesting, man. My real life isn't that. Like, I mean, there were a bunch of comedians doing that. You know, like Chris Riggins, I think, was like right behind me in doing that. You know, he's more interesting because he loves being a ham in all things. You know.
I want to hear about Mean Dave before he got into recovery, like what that guy was like.
It was not it's not that hard to describe.
Did you have any like crazy shit happen where you're like, oh shit, Mean Dave is like too mean?
Yeah.
Like
I had some incidents, but it because again I came from heavy music into comedy, and that world I was fairly tame. I was a character. I was just a loudmouth character who'd cracking jokes, and I was you know, definitely perceived as somebody who, you know, I might amp up my attitude for as a shtick, but it was essentially kind of who I was. And then when I got into comedy, I got very resentful of what was accepted in the comedy realm, and that's why I relate to it. Even, you know, there's characters in the comedy scene when I see them kind of get negative and all of that, and as much as I may not, as much as I know that it's something that, you know,
I love Dave. I love you because if you're negative on stage, Mean Dave will tell you. And I love that about you. You'll tell me like, hey, that was depressing up there.
In the end, I just did that actually recently. There was a guy that he's a good comic. His name's Colin Braun. And
yeah.
You know, Colin. Yeah, he's a funny dude. But we did a show. I felt he kind of unnecessarily mentioned this one table. That it was really strange. There was a group meetup of widows and widowers. What? And they were all older. Yeah, there was, I mean, they bought tickets, man. They had them. And it's like older folks, mostly women. The guy to girl ratio is pretty good. And I wanted to comment on that. But Colin already was going into like kind of such because he had his divorce, and he talked about them, even though they weren't doing anything to provoke the show. And so he kind of felt it necessary to try it. And I think it kind of almost, because people were laughing at what he was saying, but I think the way he kind of addressed them, it you know, and when I talked to him afterward, it didn't really seem like something he was kind of picking up on, that it might not have been the right move. And I said something to them. I said, you know, this table right here, thumbs up, not gonna mess with you. But that was one of those cases where, no, right after his set, And I said, man, that was a depressing 15 minutes. And the audience kind of laughed. Like they not kind of, they did laugh.
But
But I don't think
can I say something I like about you is like you'll tell us younger comics because you've been in the game a little
I ain't
longer.
that much younger, man. Yeah, I mean, it's okay.
No, but I am. I am.
No, I
And
get.
like
I'm messing.
no, but
I'm
some
messing.
like sometimes we'll go up there with our bullshit and it's like if you're doing comedy, do comedy. Like be funny. Like don't go up there with
Just
your
do your
like
best. No, you want. You want to know why I say that is because I've done it, and that's what I'm getting at with my before I got into recovery. It was slow going because my comedy at first, my comedy formula when I was in a band was I just took whatever was kind of in my head, and I didn't realize that I did kind of have some, not wouldn't call it material, but I had beats
kind of
that
like
and two lines.
punk
It
rock
was, I mean,
comedy.
it was a rock and roll band with some
Yeah.
punk rock and metal elements, but it was ultimately rock and roll. And
Uh-huh.
but we had me and my drummer, we didn't have like a set routine down, but we had like a vibe. It was much like jamming. We would improvise and we
Yeah.
were natural smartasses. So we just kind of would do that and it worked. And I was the loudmouth, he was the quiet one, like the straight man. And it worked. And people got it too. Music audiences too. Like they're not there for comedy, but if you can pull off getting laughs like comedy room laughs in a music audience, it's pretty good. So I got kind of cocky, I guess, when I thought I could transition into comedy based on my background, knowing comedy, being a fan, even though I'm mostly in music, but I consider myself an entertainer. And I thought I could do it. I thought I could transition into it easier.
Yeah.
And I was way fucking wrong. And so once that happened, and then once I started really fully investing myself into comedy, which took some time, but realizing that in order to get better at it, I had to really just devote myself to it. I had a bad habit of taking my resentments on stage and trying to channel them into comedy while still feeling resentful.
Yeah.
And it took another person who was doing comedy at the time, drawing a blank at her name, but she actually just moved back to the Bay Area for a minute. But she was somebody, she was too also a musician, kind of trying to be a comedian. Very smart, very smart. And I remember what she said after an open mic where I really wasn't even trying to be funny. I was just trying to be shitty to the other comics because it was just us comics, but everybody
It
was.
sounds like you were almost like trying to do therapy, but like you didn't even realize you were doing therapy.
Nah, it wasn't even therapy because therapy, you're still like, it was what it was just raw,
like emotion, like
raw resentment. It
yeah,
more than emotion. It was literally just like, this is bullshit. And I would go up there and be like, look, this is bullshit. And
right.
not
Which
even
I
in a
kind of
true.
like. I kind of like that you.
No, and some people thought, yeah, and but just doesn't. But especially if you have an audience, it
Yeah.
doesn't translate.
Right.
And everything that I was resenting them for, it was. I wouldn't say it was unfair, but it was. I didn't have the like kind of the right to really be calling them out about it just yet.
Yeah.
And
Why were you calling them out?
because I didn't have any material. I wasn't doing what I thought I could go up there and wing it more. And instead, what I was learning was I was kind of like a band that was writing their songs on stage, which you can't do. You got to kind of be prepared in some way, shape, or form. Even if you write on stage, which I tend to do, you still got to have an idea, something that like gives you a spark that you can speak on and kind of work out a little in your head or on your notes. If I don't do notes, but I kind of note in my head, because a lot of what makes whatever I do work, it has to come from the heart kind of thing. And when it comes from the heart, I don't have a hard time remembering it at all.
That like one of that like your I don't know if it's your go-to story, but that story about peeing was that like something you went to, or is that something you built off of? The
Peeing,
peeing
which
story.
song about, or which part of it?
Just the
Like,
whole thing about you peeing in the
they're
urinal.
both they were both inspired by real people. My one of my ex roommates was a guy named Aaron, who never really was at home. He was usually, because he worked off site a lot, and he would stay at places close to the site. He lived in this place that I live in now for a long time. In the last few months of him living here, he was in between jobs. He ended up moving in with his girlfriend, but he never been here that long, like with a continuous amount of time. And during that time was when I noticed I was hearing clearly what sounded like someone peeing echoing in the hallway, and I opened the door and I'm like, this motherfucker leaves the door open when he pees. Holy shit. Like, I just never, we never knew this about him because he was barely there. Maybe the other roommate, John, knew about it. I didn't know about it. And it was funny. So that was just something I kept in mind when I ended up generating the material that was based in my roommate's incident with my current roommates, which are both gone by now.
Are you by yourself now?
I'm right. Well, there's a roommate now who uses one room as a commuter space. And then the other roommate, John, who I wrote a joke about what I thought was him blasting porn, but it turned out to him having actual sex. He moved out just recently, and there was a little scandal over that.
Hey, what's worse? Hearing a guy thinking he's blasting porn or finding out he's having sex? What's worse?
I don't know. You got to ask the girl, really. I don't know. Maybe he was doing both too. He might have been doing both. Because I don't think he has that good of sex that I heard. I was like, maybe they're fucking with porn bumping.
Lady, maybe we should leave here.
The other connection to the pee story, this is the more interesting part, was the one that I connected to from the city. And it became one of my first and strongest callbacks I've ever used. I rarely do use like standard comedy devices until I realized this connects to it, because I do the joke that I didn't do this, but I do the joke about how in order to try to get Aaron to stop peeing with the door open, I went in there and peed with him. Right. And then Aaron's response to it is very in line with what Aaron was a super cool guy. He was so friendly. And I was like, if I went in there and peed with him, he'd be like, what's up, Dave? I haven't seen you in a minute. Like, he would kind of start chit chatting. My response was, I can't pee when people are talking to me, that kind of thing. That's
so when you do a bit like that for the first time, are you trying it out and then later on you're thinking, oh, this would be funny?
What happens is what I end up doing, like, I didn't have the part of I can't pee. That came naturally from what I do is I try to tell the scenario up to the real point, and then I try to embellish. And the embellishment tends to come more from a point of pressure, where, because I sat there and tried to think it out. It's like trying to take a shit and force yourself to take a shit. However, if I bring myself to the brink of something on stage, I'm more likely to kind of like jiggle it loose. So it's kind of like I can write to a point with ideas, but the punchlines almost all the time have to be found on stage in the natural moment. And then once I find them, then I got to try them and see them if they work again. And then I'll know if it's like a set punchline. The other P part, the connector piece was going to use my ATM in San Francisco. And this was a true thing. There was a guy, and again, I don't assume he was homeless, but this dude had the homeless costume on. He had the homeless vibe on. Just in walking on the street. He was walking in the same general direction as me, and he was pretty close behind me. And I went to go into my ATM, and I wasn't like, thinking he was going. I really didn't even think he was going into the same ATM. And I swiped my card, pushed the door open, and I just went into the ATM. I didn't think to hold the door open for the dude or anything like that. But what happened was, once I was at the ATM depositing money, I look over because somebody came in. I look over and it's him, and I'm like, oh fuck, I should have held the door open for him. And he's not making a big deal about it at all. I just felt, slightly discriminatory based, on class, or he was a black guy.
Black guy.
Yeah, he was a black dude, so I kind of felt like maybe I don't want him to think I'm racist. I'm kind of getting all that guilt. While he just withdrew some money and he was gone. While I was trying to get up the nerve to just say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't hold the door open for you." Now, once I'm done, I think that's the end of it, and I'm just stuck with my guilt, right? I walk out, and now I'm walking up the street. This is up the street from where Vahe Hove's show Best of SF used to be. It was at the
Oh
Variety.
yeah.
So I'm walking back up in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
and I see the dude, and he's directly across. He's directly across. I think it's Mission. Yeah, it's whatever the next street is parallel to Market. He's across Mission, facing me, right next to the where the newspaper stand shit is and all that.
Yeah.
And he's not hiding it. He's got his dick out for everyone to see right at the corner, peeing just next to the newspaper stand. So it's like he's got it hidden if you're walking on the other side of the newspaper stand towards him, but from all other directions, especially the intersection of the street intersection, anyone could see his dick if you just look in that general direction.
Is it big?
He's just peeing. I didn't look into the sun, man. I didn't want to. I assumed it was okay. It was enough so that I saw that he had a dick. All right. And so I walk I'm like, all I'm thinking was, I'm like, thank God I didn't apologize to this asshole.
Right.
That's all I thought in my head. Right. That's the real thought. That's the real thought to myself. Now, I told this story that very night at the set I did. And I told that honest thought of just like, yeah, thank God I didn't apologize to him. That's funny in just a natural conversation of what actually happened. But in comedy, performance, it wasn't, it got laughs, but it wasn't like, there wasn't quite a bit there.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was something there. Don't know what, I'll figure it out later. And oddly enough, it was back at Best of SF when I was hosting one night. And it dawned on me in the middle of my set, after I did the setup with the roommate stories, with the peeing, with Aaron, and I can't pee when people are talking to me. And then it dawned on me because I was like, I decided for some fucking reason, I decided to close with the peeing story of the dude up the street, because I'd been trying it. I figured, and I'm like, I'll figure it out. Maybe there's something there. And then I found it, and I cannot believe I risked, but it's not that high a stakes. Like, I've done that show forever. I'm hosting. I've already had a good set.
But but don't you have to like try shit and be a fucking weirdo up there?
That's the point. No, this was the point. But the key thing is, normally I would always suggest do something new in the middle of your set. For whatever reason, I was ending my decent hosting set with telling the story of the guy up the street with the ping, and in the middle of the bit, it totally hit me that what I need to do. I have the whole setup. We're in the ATM. He walks out. I'm stuck with my guilt. I walk outside. I just say to myself, if I ever have this chance again, if something like this happens again, I'll apologize quicker. And I just say, well, be careful what you wish for, because then I walked outside, and that gentleman was right outside, still there, standing in the middle of the street with his dick out for everyone to see, peeing in the middle of the street. And I was shocked. And I thought, oh my God, here's my chance to apologize. And I said, sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't hold the door open for you. And he says, man, I can't pee when someone's talking to me. And and again, now see, that's not funny when I'm telling the joke bit in just our conversational kind of shit, but you do it on stage with the amped up thing, it works. And there's something weird about how the absurdity of comedy works on stage, but in actual conversational shit, again, I tell the real story on stage, don't work. I can tell it to you now, and you're cracking up at it because you can almost picture it. It's weird. It's weird how comedy works. It's so stupid.
It's so stupid and so weird. You just nail it on the head. Like, I'll tell a friend a joke and then go do an open mic, and people are looking at me like, you need therapy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, what did I, you know what I mean? You're like, what did I do wrong? But it's just like, you can't predict it. And then sometimes I'll go on stage and just improv the whole time, and it'll be better than anything I've ever written.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about what that's. First off, also, if you're comfortable in a spot, it has to do with the key to anything that I see working, whether it's prepared, whether it's improvised, or whatever. The key that almost always, even with like the one-off somebody who's never done comedy before and they get on stage and they kill this first magic set or whatever, the whole through line through all this shit is confidence in who you are. That's all it is. So if you're feeling confident and it's real, yeah, you can probably improvise and get laughs from an audience, because an audience is responding to how sure of yourself you are in who you are and in doing this. The moment, even if you're bombing, you need to be confident, because funny thing is, there's bombing sets that are sad and there's bombing sets that are still funny even though the audience doesn't find them funny. And the key
So,
difference
like, do you find your sets better when you go to a meeting or you do stuff that like is kind of
I
on your
never do, I never do
checkpoint of
comedy.
shit to
I
do?
never do comedy at a meeting. I never work bits out
No,
at
but
a.
like, no, like my point is like, do you think your comedy is better like when you've gotten all your checkpoints for the day done?
I don't know. I don't really have like checkpoints for the day. Like, you know
You
what
know
I mean?
what? Like I don't know how to explain it. Like for me, like if I don't work out or do certain things, I feel like I'm crazy for the day. So I feel like if I do these certain things, I feel like my comedy's better. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that's that. What you're saying is you have a routine, a
Right.
general living routine, and
Right.
if you're not doing that routine, then you tend to perform with a lack of confidence. That's what I'm telling. That's
Exactly.
what it tells me. I
Exactly.
my as far as my confidence tends to come from more. I mean, I can't really. Oddly enough, as self-aware as I like to think that I am, I don't know where exactly my confidence to do comedy really just comes from the fact of just repetition of doing it. I love it.
What what
I
motivates you to do comedy, I mean, Dave? Are you waking up and being like, fucking life is stupid? Like, let's
No,
dive
I
into it.
honestly, what's funny is I don't actually. My reason for getting into comedy was more. It was to promote a band, and then all I did was find out that I might have been better. I should have probably started doing comedy sooner. I basically discovered that I had a skill set that was probably more suited to stand up this entire time. The way like Happy Gilmore, the move like finds out that he probably should have been a golfer instead of a
But
hockey player, and
But I
still
don't get I don't get what you mean like the promote a band. I don't get how you get in a comedy
I
promote
had
a
a
band. What do
band
you mean?
again.
Do
The
cartwheels and somersaults? I don't get
No,
that.
I no, my band had a comedic thread in it. Remember, I was telling you earlier.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I thought if I went into stand-up comedy with this Mean Dave character that I've cultivated in music and in performance, if I start doing
Yeah.
stand-up, I can do stand-up, win over audiences, and then hey, you like this? Well, come see my band perform in a music environment.
Yeah.
My thinking was I was trying to widen the scope of promotion for this band that I thought was great, which
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's also drug thinking, because I was high a lot during that time. I was doing a lot
Yeah.
more cocaine than an average person who doesn't do cocaine, and
I want to start a business.
I wasn't a hardcore cokehead, but I was
Yeah.
like, I was doing enough. I was doing definitely enough to make life unmanageable. I
Yeah.
had a drinking problem too. I smoked weed like a chimney. But to me, those weren't problems at the time because I was living a lifestyle that I'd been living for 20 years at that time,
Right.
close to 20 years. And I had amassed a lot of creativity within it. The thing that I don't think I really was honest with myself about it was that it was, but it also it came from a scene that didn't value pursuing it for monetary ends,
Right.
even though
They were
but you
more like
want to.
wanting to get high with you, but like didn't want to hear ideas.
No, it's more. I mean, I'm saying more that the pursuit of music. Ultimately, I wanted to make it a job, but I came from a scene like the bands like here, the Melvins is my favorite band, and they turned
Nice.
it into a job, and they work it like it's a job, but they love their job. They're not rock stars per se, but they
Right.
play on the rock star mythos so that everybody kind of and they've inspired countless bands that have gone on to great success, and their biggest success is the fact that they're still around, outliving all of the bands that they've inspired, who've been great successes, and they make a living, a comfortable living, doing what they do.
And that's what you want to do.
They inspired me to, like, that's my goal in comedy. I wanted to do that in music, but unfortunately I was a recreational drug user to the point,
Yeah.
and to the point that it became a problem. And in the end, I realized I've been an addict the whole time. I just managed my addiction better than most, and was in denial about its effects on my character.
Yeah.
And so then that's the shit that needed to be addressed before anything came that was good my way. And that took 3 years of failing at comedy jobs and other people.
I bet you that was so crazy to go from like fucked up Dave on stage to sober Dave. Like I can't even imagine what that.
It was a transition.
Like.
No, there was a transition because I was I was negotiating with my disease. I went 8 months without drinking in 2012.
Yeah.
I had a somewhat of a girlfriend, but she was more of a best friend at the time.
Yeah.
And one night I filmed myself.
Oh yeah, I know a couple of those. Yeah.
And I mean, she's still a good friend of mine. I don't talk to her as often, but I filmed myself one night, and I was being really rude to her. I was being really mean to her, and she never held it against me. But I watched the video the next day, and it was embarrassing. And I just remember thinking, like, I drink like this and treat you that way. I can't be doing that. Trouble is I was making other people my higher power. I wasn't, going into I wasn't, doing any kind of program sobriety. I wasn't sober. I didn't stop drinking because I wouldn't do coke if I didn't drink, but I smoked weed and did shrooms like crazy. And but my comedy did improve during that time. And it was because I didn't really start making good first impressions until somewhere around the middle of 2011 through 2012. And then I was kind of reaping some of the benefits of it around the beginning of 2013. And that's when I started drinking again. And once I started drinking, I would maintain for a while. Like I wouldn't drink every single day, but the trouble was I was just postponing an inevitable binge. And once I hit a binge, an incident would happen. And
would you perform comedy like blacked out?
I only not really. Normally, most of my drinking and my drug use would happen when I was off stage, except for weed. I'd smoke weed all day because that was
your comedy a lot shittier high, like on weed.
The weed didn't even affect. The weed was really the way I smoked cigars. It really was. High, but it got me high. But I was so used to living my life high that it really didn't. Like I didn't think about it. It was more of like ritual than it was really being high. And I enjoyed being high. I was able to perform high, but I don't think I was as sharp because essentially what I learned was that I'm better when I'm in. And I say this for all comedians. Comedians are better the more that you're in tune. That's why drinking on stage, all that. I mean, maybe if you could have one beer, but anything that's going to dull your senses in any way is that much more gonna kind of disconnect you from an audience. Unless that audience already buys into you as an alcoholic, like your Ron Whites, your Burt Kreischers,
a lot of those guys don't even drink. It's a facade. And like,
but they did at one point. They did do it at one point. They developed it because it's not sustainable over time. But Dave Attell really drank on stage for a number of years because of insomnia.
But like, I want to say something like, and I've been on stage, you probably seen me, like, it's embarrassing to be on stage and slur your words. Like, think...
No, you slur audiences, like, their audiences are like, he's fucking shit-faced.
It's disgusting. I think it's the worst thing you could fucking do on stage.
I don't want to say it's, like, not that bad. All it means is just that you're sloppy. And there's still
that's horrible, Dave. If you're trying to be like a good comedian.
I'm not, dude, but I've seen people still pull it off, and it's I'm not defending it. I'm saying it. Then it's up to how good the comic is and I don't mean like as a good comedian. I mean like how much natural ability do they have? Because I've seen some shit-faced motherfuckers even forget that they've told the same jokes and still get laughs from an audience to the point where it's, are you fucking kidding me, audience? You just heard that joke and they're drunk and they're telling it again. And now they're figuring out that they told it again. And now you think it's just funny because it's like, oh, he's shit. Like, that's again, comedy's stupid, man. I can't, I want to, if I get a high horse on anything in comedy, there's always going to be something that comes around and just fucking donkey kicks that fucking stool right out from under me. And now I'm on my ass watching somebody totally break that rule and get massive success. So I can't even sit here and claim that anything's this, that, or the other, because there's so much that proves any notion wrong. The only thing I know about whatever comedy is really like my last set. I'm only as good as my last set and whatever. And I, as far as the way when I was wasted, it was always after the show. I did perform drunk a couple of times, and I would only perform on shows that I didn't really respect if I was drunk. And
you never got like sometimes with me, if I've overdone it before a show, it's like because I'm nervous. You've never got too nervous where you like got fucked up before the show. You're like, oh my god, you know what I mean?
I know the only time that I performed blackout drunk that I don't remember, but I kind of remember. I had flashes of it because I knew what I was doing. Because people thought that I was like didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, no, I was doing my Mean Dave character, and I went too far. I went very too far. Like basically. It was a night at Paul Brumbaugh's room in 2013. It was back when I was drinking again. It was a night that I lost my room at the I forget the name of the place, the Sedini's. I used to run a showcase. It was called the This Is Not an Open Mic Showcase, which essentially was like I would have people booked, but normally anybody who showed up, I would try to give them a set. I just discouraged from calling it an open mic because everybody treats open mics like shit.
Right.
It was a fun show. It was a fun show. And but one night, it was this one particular night. I remember it because Jeff Applebaum was headlining it. I had Victor Pachenko helping me. This was when I was still cool with him, and he was new at the time. And I just had a breakup. And I swore to myself, I can't drink this week because I know I'm hurt. I'm going to binge if I drink. So I'm trying not to drink. And what do I do like an idiot? I go hang out at my old bar haunt that I used to live behind before the show, which is up the street from Sedini's. Is this place called the Mardi Gras. It's no longer there. But I hung out there and people were buying me drinks. So next thing you know, I'm doing some shots. I'm drinking some beers. And I'm got my buzz on. I then drive up the street, park my car, go to Sedini's. And what put me over was I had an Arrogant Bastard. They had Arrogant Bastard on tap as my favorite beer. So I started drinking Arrogant Bastard. And after all the alcohol I previously drank in the afternoon, now it's like 6 o'clock and I'm drinking my Arrogant Bastard. And this was the first time that Sedini's had like a pretty big audience because Robert Carroll, who runs that bar, he promoted it at a fundraiser over the weekend that we have comedy every Thursday or no, it was every Wednesday. And it was like every other Wednesday or some shit. But he promoted it. And so people showed up because of that. And now here I am blackout drunk. And now I go into Mean Dave shtick blackout style, which it tends to be, it comes off general, like actually mean. And all my punk rock friends that were there,
no meaningful Dave. No meaningful.
All my punk rock friends, they were dying laughing at the shit I was saying.
Oh man,
I say dying. I don't really remember. They told me
I'm sure they were. Dude.
That shit was hilarious. Sure you just ended up walking the entire room, and I because I go full commitment with it. Right. But it's my shtick, and I've had when I was in the last year of my drinking. I had at least 3 or 4 incidents where I was drinking, doing my shtick, and people afterwards, after like when we had a timeout or whatever, they were like, "What the fuck are you doing, Dave? You got to leave."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? Why?" And they were like, what, dude, you're insane right now." And I'm like, that's my character. And no one would get it. And the fact that I'm drunk doesn't help.
Right.
So
did you start with Mean Dave, or did that thing come later on?
What do you mean? Start
Like
comedy.
Mean Dave was like a thing you started with when you started comedy.
Mean
I'm
Dave
like,
was
I'm
the
Mean Dave.
character from my band. Mean Dave was the character from my band that I transitioned into comedy with. So I had
Okay.
the so yeah, and it was a character that, but it got out of control trying to do that character in comedy when I realized I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not working the same. It's like being a prop comic and I don't have my prop, which is the band. And
Right.
then not for that, but I'm getting very frustrated in that not working. And then when I would get drunk or get into that place where I'm now
Yeah.
my subconscious is taking over, those
Yeah.
resentments were all coming to the forefront. And now I'm taking out all the shit that I'm saying my real mind about what I hate about comedy to these motherfuckers' faces and to audiences. And I'm letting everybody I turn into like Scarface in that one, not the real Scarface, but Scarface and Half Baked
Did
when
you
he's
ever
like
like? Did you
job
ever have to
and he's
fight
like, fuck
people?
you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you. I turned into that. That's what I
Do
was
you
doing.
ever have to fight people?
I had people want to fight me, but oddly enough, I'm not a violent person. It's not that I mean, I've gotten dragged into some fights, but
Yeah.
and now today I don't even, are you kidding
What
me? I got
like
a shoulder. I can't
what
do.
what like made you realize like I'm being an asshole. I need to change. Not like I'm not talking about your life like oh I need to get sober and stuff, but like on the comedy life, like what made you think like oh shit, like I gotta be Mean Dave, but also like I gotta also get people to like me and still be
I wasn't funny, man. I wasn't
yeah.
funny. I knew that I was
But
a
how'd
funny.
you know that you weren't funny? Because that's a hard thing that
Nobody was
comedians
laughing,
deal
man.
with.
Nobody was laughing. That's why the easiest thing. I the I knew in my
No one
here's
was
the thing.
laughing.
Here's the thing, Alex. I don't consider myself a funny person, okay? But I
Okay.
know but I've made people laugh at me enough to where I hate when people say this, but yeah, people throughout my life were like, you ought to do stand-up comedy. I'm like, I love stand-up comedy. I don't want to do it. That shit
Right.
belongs because those are a specific type of person. I never
Right.
thought I was one of those people, just like I never thought I was an addict. I never
Right.
thought
Right.
that I fit it. I felt like Happy Gilmore, who thought of himself as a hockey player and then looks at golfers and like, if I wore those pants, I'd have to kick my own ass. That's how I felt about. I love the world of it, but I was heavily inspired by stand-up comedy throughout my life. But I didn't want to do that shit. I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be cool. The
Do you think stand-up comedy found your sobriety? You
Yes, I
yeah.
absolutely no. I fully credit my pursuit of stand-up for helping me into recovery. It totally, because in the end, what happened was I realized I was learning little by little things that actually became very relevant to my recovery, and that was I couldn't perform angry on stage. I was learning that slowly, mostly through 2011. And if I knew that I was truly angry, which there's a lot of things that anger people, especially early on in comedy, waiting around all night and not
Oh, I
getting up.
hate that. I hate that's the
All
worst
time,
part about
but
comedy.
it's part of the dues you got to pay. You got to learn how to read the, not just read the room of an audience, but read the room of like, hey, do you think you're likely to get up here? Well, you might have made a wasted trip out here.
Right.
Learn how to talk to the people, be polite, be friendly, and learn how to like hit somebody up and be like, hey, I just came from, like, if I'm going to do an open mic in Modesto and I drove from fucking Union City, yeah, I kind of want a set. I would hope to get one during a good time, but I'm not going to throw my weight around, but I'll definitely let somebody know, like, hey, we drove from a while, just letting you know, so that we can get up, versus people that live 2 minutes away who are up here all the time. That
So
kind of thing.
like so like what like okay, so say you get a gig in Modesto.
So, yeah.
Like what like I'm just curious because I deal with this too. Like what keeps you going? Like okay, you're sober, you're gonna go do this gig, like you may get like 30 people at a gig. Like are you get something little out of that. Okay, you get a tag out of that. What like I'm just curious about like what keeps you going? Like like an open mic isn't gonna keep you going, but like that show, is that show gonna keep you going? Like that audience, like what?
Dude, what keeps me going are paid gigs, man. I here's the thing. Even when I was just toiling away at open mics, but getting paid, it didn't matter
What
how
made
much.
you a headliner? What made you a headliner?
Just getting better, and somebody booking me to headline. And I would say getting better overall. I made good first impressions on people who booked. You've had this happen where I made
Yeah,
a good first impression on somebody who
right.
was booking a room somewhere, and I got hit up. Hey, really liked what you did. Would you be willing to headline this room? Can you headline? And I'm like, yeah. Even if I didn't have that much experience or whatever, I will work to do what they're
Yeah,
asking of.
yeah.
And this was driving all the way to Fresno for a gig that I made $50 headlining, but that was fucking $50. It was worth it, and I think it pretty much covered my gas. I don't know. I don't have all the records of all that shit. That was when I was still driving too. But
So like, so like, when you do gigs like that, is that like in the back of your head, like that is an added thing, like it's an added like point to if I get another gig, like I can handle that kind of thing.
it
You know what I mean?
it
Like,
no, it's again, it's you're developing confidence.
right,
At first,
right.
like what I may be confident in at that point in time was performing to I performed to on that particular gig. I don't remember what my first headlining gigs were bringer shows, and I knew what the score was with that. Okay, but they weren't like actual headlining shows. It was just like I was the person who brought a bunch of people here, and now I'm going last after some marathon lineup, and I'm
Right.
getting
Is
paid
it
what I brought.
like in AA, like you have the high, like I'm sober, like everything I do sober is amazing. Like it's kind of like
No,
comedy that
that's
way.
not. That never. First off, that's never happens. Even
No.
like life feels better, but no, not everything you do just because you're sober is amazing. They call it something
Well,
cloud when you find if you start feeling good early in recovery, but
well,
life
my
shows
point
up
is,
very
like
quickly.
in the beginning of comedy, you're like, oh, every gig is amazing and stuff, and then you start doing gigs, you're like,
No,
oh, this kind of sucks.
I didn't have that. I didn't have that experience at all. As a matter of fact,
No.
I had an experience that when I started again, that's where I would start to see because I had sets that I would say were comparable with people who audiences and bookers liked. That's not to
Yeah.
say that I wasn't a savant at it,
Yeah.
but there were definitely people that I saw were going to be moving really quick that I started with. There's people that I started with that are working comics now. David Bory, he's a known entity. He's a headliner of like some B rooms and stuff. He's the voice of Comedy Central and Paramount Plus right now. So whenever you hear
Okay.
an ad on Comedy Central or Paramount Plus, that's his
Mm,
voice. And he's
okay.
from Colorado, but he got his start in comedy out here and cut his teeth out here
Oh
before
no.
he moved to LA. And
Mm.
and he's a funny dude, and I used to get along with him. But he's also one of the people that I pissed off online and blocked me. So no,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm blocked by some of the best. Amy Miller. Amy Miller is someone who started the year I started. Matter of fact, she blocked me over when she was drunk, pissed off at me, just sort of like asking questions about when exactly she started because I thought she started before me, and it turned out she started a month or two after me. And she got mad at me questioning it or something. And she's cool too. Like I don't have anything bad to say about her,
I'm just curious
but
about when you find out that confidence, like when's that appear? Like,
it just what I'm saying is you build it. It does. I can only talk about my own experience, and then
right.
I see like actual headlining club confidence, but the all it is I did that set. I got away with it. I did the one that I got booked that was just completely from the guy there. Yeah, you have a good set. You might film it and watch it later or something. See, I
Yeah.
still have it. I remember when I watch it now, it's pretty funny. It's funnier because it's so there's a lot of early me in it. But
So
uh
when you're chilling with your buddies, when you're going to the movies or something, Is it better just to be Mean Dave, or is it better to think, hey, I could get a bit from going to the movies right now. I could get a
I
bit
never
from
think
hanging out at
I
AA
don't
meetings.
no I don't there's no like distinction between, I don't really, the name itself and the things that I do with it is really just the brand to it's like a band. I don't really yeah, I'm a little amped up on stage
Yeah.
these days. But the voice that I have on stage is a lot closer to just my actual personality.
But
And
when you're getting coffee with a buddy, are you being like, oh, this I could
I
get a
don't
joke from this guy?
dude, I've never, you've hung out with me, man. I hate
Yeah.
thinking in those terms. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
it's not to say that I can't get material from something, but I'm not,
You're
I
not
consider,
looking for it.
it will find me. Like, a moment will
Yeah.
happen. There's a lot of weird shit that happens to me, and I try talking about it on stage, and it won't work. And
Why
maybe
won't
I'm
it
not,
work? You ever
I don't
think
know.
about
I
that
don't
shit?
fucking
Like,
know. That you
yeah.
got to ask the audience, man. And I don't even have the time to, I can't Q&A that. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
There's no, if something isn't working, it takes less time to ditch it and try to find something that does work than it does to sit here. What I do find is that, say, like, something really is like in my brain, it's a scratch, it's an itch in my brain. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I found something here, but I can't quite find it yet.
Yeah.
I table that shit. All right.
Hmm.
Leave that be. Don't even, it's kind of it's a strange thing. Comics talk about this all the time, like professional
Yeah.
comic. A bit that isn't working, you just table that shit. And then say you're doing a set somewhere, and you might be improvising something, or maybe, and it just clicks, just like this P story. That's exactly what
Yeah.
happened with the peeing shit.
Yeah.
I had this story, didn't know that it could bookend with the other P story. And then it dawned on me when I'm closing telling the story that I'm like, oh, pee. That's it. It's just urine. All right. Yeah, I can't pee when people are talking to me. I just call back to that line. And when I say that line early on, it's not a huge punchline. It's a simple throwaway tag that I make sure people hear, but
So
it's just a
you're
little piece in the story. And when I call back to it, it gets a bigger laugh because they're like, if you were paying attention, I gave you an Easter egg that now is a callback. And it is true. I don't like it when people talk to me while I'm peeing.
So
So
you're like fucking chilling at an AA meeting, drinking coffee, thinking randomly, you're not even planning this. Oh fuck, this can be something I can add to a story. Like,
I don't know. Here's the thing. I always feel that's like a hack personality, Alex. I think a hack personality is somebody that is always, yeah, man, maybe this could be a bit, man. Maybe with that to me is annoying. I don't, it's in working comics, there's people that I think are genuinely exciting to be around, in general, not comedy or not. And people who have charisma that, like, I'm friends with a lot of those in recovery. I'm friends with a lot of there's some comedy people that are like that. They're people that are just, and this is a quality that you want in your comedy, even if you're not that personality off stage, is you want to develop a persona that has like a life of the party kind of vibe when you're on stage. Now, I'm
right.
not a life of the party kind of person. I don't like the
Right.
irony of doing comedy. I don't like a lot of attention, even though I
I
do a
know
lot
that.
of things that generally attract attention, but it's who I am. I feel,
Right. No,
I
it
love
totally is
wearing
you.
I love wearing band shirts. I love going to shows. I love playing in
Yeah.
bands. That's no longer really a thing with me anymore, but I still love participating in that community because it's what I grew up with. It's what I'm interested in. I genuinely, I love that stuff. And it helps give me a window into other stuff. Like, just because I like, dark, brooding, heavy metal bands or whatever, doesn't mean that I can't enjoy some lighthearted shit. And I have a window more into that based through the lens of the stuff that I did have a first interest in. Today I was listening to Radiohead. I never have listened to Radiohead that much, even though I like their music. I've even seen them live back in the day when Creep was out. I got to see him in a club, to a packed club, because my buddy
So
wanted.
so
So
is your point just to be you?
yeah, I mean, I think that's the point of what everybody should really be aiming for. And if being you does mean being a hack personality, always trying to, go ahead, run with it. That's I'm not. I don't think there's anything wrong. I'll just find you annoying, maybe.
So
I don't know.
it's better to be annoying and hack and be
No,
yourself
no,
than to try and
there's
be
no
hacked.
general rule for this, Alex.
Yeah.
There's no, because again, there's people. I think the important thing is to find what works for you. This is the same that goes in recovery. There are no rules other than, work at, you need, the harder you work, the luckier you get, man. You need to work at something if you want to be good at it.
Yes. Yes, I
You
believe
need
that.
to, yeah, and you do need to
Yeah.
obviously, take some chances and
Yes.
the dice. You can't just, you're not gonna get
Right.
better just being in your comfort zones. I know this
Right.
from recovery and comedy. And
Exactly.
but I
Mhm.
think it also, as far as what, it's different for everybody, because I've
Yeah.
seen different approaches. I in both, it's not just in comedy, and this is in life, man.
Yeah.
One of my friends who I'm now working on, I have a new podcast that I do called Meaningful Times with Friends. And one of the coolest things about it is these are my old friends from junior high and high school, and they're the funniest people I know. These are people
Yeah.
that are truly, truly say things that make me laugh out loud, and they're not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
And I'm just the one who went into comedy. I'm the least funniest, in my opinion, out of the four
Yeah.
of these guys. And
Yeah.
but in part of the tricky part in now inviting them to do a podcast with me and trying to develop that is, one of them, at least just one of them, he's now kind of hamming it up, because he does have a vested interest in stand-up comedy. He's not gonna do it. He's a married dude with kid, and he has a tough job, but he kind of lives vicariously a little through me in
Mhm.
doing this comedy thing, like just talking to me, and like he writes bits and
Yeah.
and whatever. But and I already told him, I said, you hated because we had a band together too, and I
Yeah.
had the same experience with music where I played in music and dived into it, and then he kind of was a little bit behind, like, hey, I kind of want to start doing music again, and
Yeah.
I had to have him catch up. Well, in comedy, that I'm like, you're way fucking far behind if you think you're gonna do this shit. Which I said, you're gonna hate the world of comedy even worse than the world of music if you really want to
Yeah.
do it. And that's just
Yeah.
knowing him. But he's possibly one of the smartest people I know from my age group, and definitely one of the funniest. And he was a straight C&D student through
Uh-huh.
high school. Dude, here, I'll give you an example. One of his lines. I
Okay.
love this, still makes me laugh.
Okay.
He was failing algebra for freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, failed algebra
Yeah.
3 years in a row. So senior year, he took pre-algebra. And in the beginning of the class, the teacher goes, all right, class, let's discuss, like, what are some of your goals that you have once you graduate high school? They go around the class and they get to him, and he goes, well, my goal is to graduate and go to a 4-year college and major in pre-algebra so I can come back and teach pre-algebra. So he's fucking dogging the teacher right then and there, like just a flat out smart ass. Like, yeah, my goal is to go, maybe get my, I think he said worse than that. He was like, go to a 4-year school, get my master's then too, and get my doctorate in pre-algebra so I can come back and give back. He's just a consummate smart ass. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of shit that he used to do. But
So like
now,
so like a guy like that,
yeah.
he wants to do comedy. How do
No, he
you
doesn't.
like,
No, he doesn't.
especially
I
like,
wouldn't say he
well,
doesn't
like,
want to do comedy. He likes doing fucked up shit. He thought, again, like, once I talked to him about the stand-up comedy world,
yeah,
oh yeah, he has no interest in doing it, but he has a vested interest in the world of it. He gets a little, inside baseball from me, and he's seen my gigs and stuff, and he sees exactly through me. But he also, the coolest thing is, he's one of the hardest people to impress. And like, I have those kinds of friends where I'm performing, yes, for the audience, but I don't care about that much about that audience. My audience are my friends and family, because they all have a level of taste in stand-up that I respect or fed mine. Like my parents, all four of my parents, they enjoy my comedy, and mainly my mom and my stepdad, they raised me on stand-up comedy. So when they enjoy my gig,
but let me get because we've never talked about this. Let me get your opinion on, okay, your buddies, your parents. Okay, Eddie Murphy was a big person back in the day. Like, how's your take on like comedy now and then, and how people perceive it as you're hanging out with people? Because if I'm hanging out with my buddies, it's a different kind of comedy than what I'm doing on stage. You know
Yeah,
what I
but you
mean?
know what? What is everybody trying to mimic right now with all these podcasts, man? They're all trying to. It's dude. It's the same 50 to 100 people. All like I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. All right, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch the YouTube shit, but I'm watching the same pool of people just going from each other's podcasts. What are they doing? They're all simulating hanging out. Some have a format, some might have games in it, some might have other shit, but in the end, all they're mimicking is hanging out. And then and they're professionals, some of them more than others, so they know how to like hang out in a professional capacity. And some, and also like Maron, you know, he became a good interviewer, and it's not about being funny, it's about having a quality conversation. The worst at it is the most popular one right now, and that's Joe Rogan. And I don't say that he's a terrible podcaster. That dude is incredibly smart, like guy, just in the doing of things. Like he does things that he loves to do, and he works at them. Like I don't discredit any of that. However, that man has the most indulgent goddamn podcast on the planet. And I watch it every now and then. He has an incredible gift for taking some of the most interesting people and having conversations with them that sound like the dumbest motherfuckers that I've ever heard. And it's just because they're sitting, he's like, yeah, man, you know, you get a barbecue, you know, and, you know, I like to get the pieces of meat. They're like, man, I can't stand those conversations around people I know. Why do I want to hear famous people talk about their fucking barbecues, their thoughts on anything really that isn't like a hone, you know, and how many times have you heard a discussion about comedy from these guys? It's like, yes, I know that you're a comedian, man. You know, it's one of the most fucking, how many times do you want to hear somebody about their job? All right. Like sitting there, like if you had a friend that was a doctor and they're like, yeah, so I, you know, that's the thing about surgery, man. You know, you got to get it scalpel and it's got to be sharp. And, you know, and you can't just like, you know, whatever. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying about that.
I totally agree with you. And it's one of the things
You don't have to agree. I'm just,
no, I hate podcasts, or it's like agreeable podcast. My whole point was like, I wanted to get to the bones and be like, how do you separate like hanging out with friends comedy to like on stage comedy? Because I feel like it's a little different, because I can say like fag, retard, homo, and then I'll go on stage.
Those are buzzwords you shouldn't even be saying around your friends, man. No, here's the thing, and it depends on the nature of your friends, all right? And the things that make your friends laugh, yeah, that's like green room talk, all right?
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, when comics are in a green room, there's a reason why like certain things. You know what Chappelle was doing a lot with all of the trans stuff?
Yeah,
he was proven to like comedians and on that he could take green room talk and put it on stage.
Right.
That's essentially what he was doing, and because he's so bored, man. The guy's done everything, and been successful at it. So why not try doing the things you're not supposed to do, and not only that, but do it like 5 fucking times in specials. And you know, and I don't salute it at all. I got his point early on, and then I was just sort of like, hey man, just fucking transgender for fuck's sake. And
so are you? Is your point? Is your point like we've heard that? Like I want to do.
No, my point isn't so much that. My point is in terms of like what you're asking about hanging out with your friend, when you're hanging out with the friends that you have or whatever, trying to be funny for people, that's people pleasing behavior. But you really, why do your friends hang out with you? You hang out because you want to relax. You're chilling out. You might, you know, you have a shared experience. You go to the movies, go to a ball game, go do that. No one, and some people more than others, there's some groups of people that, yeah, they hang out and they want to, they want to, you know, have quips and think they're so fucking clever. Some people, I like hanging out with people that shut the fuck up. I love my friends who shut the fuck up. And then when they speak, it adds an even more spice to it. But when I'm saying like say things unless they really mean them. They're really feeling them. They're genuine. They're not comfortable with silence. Really,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
I love that.
But I don't have any like hard. I'm surprised. I just actually there's somebody I can't really name him out of principle of anonymity, but there was somebody who was kind of there was somebody who was new to comedy who was interacting a lot on my posts before I met him and was chatting with me a little bit, and they clearly were trying to be funny, trying hard to be funny. And that's one of my pet peeves. I was just sort of like, hey man, you can not try to turn everything into a joke. You can just talk to me like a normal person. And he wouldn't stop. So then I'm starting to say mean things back to get him to stop. And then he basically came forth and said, hey man, I know you're in recovery. I've actually been trying to get recovery, and I haven't been that successful at it, but I really want to try to give it a good go. And I have a feeling that you might be a good sponsor fit for me. And in the recovery world, you know, based on, you know, especially with my experience in it, someone asks you, you say yes until you feel it doesn't work, or until they stop, you know, coming to you. So
his jokes were bombing so bad. He was like, "Hey, I like."
No, it wasn't. No, it was. That's again, you're trying to make a joke out of it, Alex, and that's bombing. But but my point being, he ended up. He was trying to ingratiate himself to me because he had. I wouldn't call it an agenda, but it was an agenda of this guy knows recovery. He works in the comedy world. He's kind of doing what I want to be doing on a couple different levels. I'll just be upfront and tell him, and he did, and I'm his sponsor right now, and we're working on his recovery. And comedy's, you know, is a lower priority, but you know, I'm trying to help him get what I'm trying to do what we say in recovery: keep what you have by giving it away. I've had sponsees in the past, and I haven't had the. It's not a reflection on me. But none of my sponsors. This is something another comic, Sean Sinha, a good friend of mine. I love this guy. He asked me one time. He goes, "Do you have any sponsees?" And I go, "Yeah, I did." I said, "All my sponsees though have either disappeared, relapsed, and then one even died." And he goes, "Jesus, man, try not to sponsor anybody else." And I tell that sometimes in my shares when I talk about I'm always willing to sponsor, but in a way sponsorship is kind of like a weird popularity contest in recovery, because somebody, you know, it's like, I want you to be my sponsor. I've offered people before, like trying to be more outgoing about it, and they'll just be like, actually, you know, it's like being rejected at the junior high dance, man. I'm like, motherfucker, I don't want to be a sponsor, but I know it's part of the program. You clearly need one, motherfucker. And now you're going to tell me no? Man, fuck you. You know, that kind of shit. Like, hope you relapse, you know, and that's not what I'm saying at all, but that's the feeling that you'll get. So I ended up, I basically was like, you know what? I'm just going to be willing, and my higher power, you know, presents me with somebody that needs a sponsor. And if anybody asks me, thinks that I would be a good sponsor, I'm willing. I totally was willing. And that came in the form of a guy who was annoying me at first, not terribly, but just, you know, annoying enough, but then learning that there was a deeper problem. And then it's like, oh, no. And then I met him, and we hung out today actually for the first time in person, and he's a cool dude, but he's going through it, and I'm trying to be there to help. So
are you focusing more on his recovery than his comedy? Cause like,
it's not me. He has to, that's up. And it's not focusing. In order for and this is something that's said in this is recovery talk here, so prepare yourself.
I know it. Tell me.
But no, but the in recovery, if you put your recovery first, everything falls into place somehow. The moment you start putting anything ahead of your recovery, those are the first things you tend to lose as soon as you relapse.
What made you? I'm sure there's a huge story, but what was the ultimatum about you being in recovery? It doesn't have to be like, don't.
It was the cops, man. It was the cops. I got arrested a second time for a DUI, man.
If that didn't happen, would you still be out there?
Could very well. I think eventually something would have happened that led to the law. Here's the thing: it could have wound up based on the way I was behaving, and it wasn't like it was just like I already had enough instances where something bad was going to happen. I even had a feeling something bad was going to happen.
No shit. Okay.
Still, my disease was so cunning, baffling, powerful. I would still put myself in situations that put me in danger. The way that I was going, I am lucky that I didn't kill anybody with my car, that I didn't kill myself with my car, that I didn't permanently injure anybody with my car. When I got that, I saw the cop lights behind me and I knew that I was driving home drunk. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how stupid I am. Because I knowingly did so. That night, my last night drinking, I tried smoking weed 2 more days before my first meeting. And those were they were the worst, bowls I smoked.
The
last night of my actual drinking was September 26, 2013, and I drank into the early morning of September 27th.
Were you doing comedy?
I did comedy that night, and I had only 2 beers throughout the night. It was at my old room, Sanctuary Ultra Lounge in Livermore. I only had 2 beers throughout the night over the course of 3 hours, so I was good legally to go home. However, I got in my car and I thought to myself, I don't want to go home right now. I kind of want to tie one on a little bit. I feel like going and drinking alone. So I went to a nearby bar that they actually have an open mic at the bar I went to now. It's the Good Times Tavern. It's nothing against them.
It's a fun place.
Yeah. So I went over to the Good Times Tavern, and I knew the owner then. I don't know if it's the same owner now, but I think his name was Stowe.
Probably not.
Because I met him. He was friends with Ben Kalina, because Ben Kalina is from Livermore, and he knew the guy. So I met him there, and and he was totally cool to me. But I drank Jaeger bombs and beers until close, and I thought I was just going to go pass out in my car. And instead, thanks to the Red Bull, all the Red Bull I had, I was still awake, and I thought I could make it home. And oddly enough, as soon as those cop lights went on, it was the best case scenario of a worst case scenario, because I reached the point of just ultimate embarrassing level of stupidity within, because this was so avoidable. And I had so many instances leading up to that point telling me that I need to stop. And I wasn't at a point of full surrender, and I wasn't at a point of realizing that I need help. I can't do this alone. And I'd been trying to do it on my own, and it wasn't working, and everything was just worse. So this was, once I had 48 hours to kind of sit on it with all my guilt and figure it out. And I talked to my folks, because they were about to kick me out of their house. And I said, I think I need to go to a meeting. I'm going to go to an NA meeting. I went to NA first because I wanted to be free of all substances. And AA, even though they say they focus on alcohol, they taught, it's to get clean of all things, but you can still, there's people I know who, and I have nothing against them, there's people I know who still, California sober, they smoke weed, but do an AA program, and I have no problem with that.
But like, how long that, because like I see you on stage, and to me you're like confident as fuck, and like to hear you like in a program and like deal with shit, it blows my mind away, because I don't see that person on stage. Like, did you see like a jump from like you getting recovery for a little bit? Like, did you see like, oh fuck, if I'm sober, like I could be way better at this?
I already had mindset. Here's the thing. I already saw that potential when I was still drinking and getting high.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, when you go into recovery, I didn't get into recovery specifically to get better at comedy. I got into recovery because it was drugs and alcohol were ruining my life.
Right. And I get that.
So that being the main point of again, the full surrender thing, I literally told I said, I don't care about comedy right now. I'll figure that out if it's even meant to be in the cards. I considered it may be something I have to quit if it's something that's contributing to my ability to maintain sobriety. But I didn't know that until after I started going to meetings. And the thing is, I still had gigs booked, and I'm going to honor those gigs, but I don't know. And they were, only if they were paid gigs. I was doing 90 meetings in 90 days, more than that, actually. I worked this program. The thing is, I from that arrest, and those 48 hours leading up to my discussion with my folks and my first meeting, that's still in my head. And they say, if you don't remember your last few hours of drinking before and using before you went to your first meeting, you got another relapse in you. I remember it so vividly because I've also relapsed plenty of times when I was trying to stop on my own. So I have all the relapse guilt figured out.
Well, I get that, and like I've been there too myself, but like what like
relapsing if I relapse with recovery in my head, that's gonna be even worse. It's gonna be a waste of drugs and alcohol as far as I'm concerned. I'm not even gonna have any fun.
I get that, but like I guess like when I'm kind of tying together with this whole podcast and just talking to you, like I don't like, especially as someone that hasn't been doing it as long as you, like I think sometimes I get discouraged, like I don't know what I was thinking, like the dream of being a comedian is so far out there, like all these guys are doing this and that, like when you're clean and sober, I feel like sometimes you're like you think things clearer, and like did you ever think like comedy's stupid when you got like clean and sober, or did you think like better this is
here's the thing. I love stand-up comedy as the medium that it is. I love it. The people that do it well enough that it's like kind of an art form. I don't consider it an art form. I think there's an art to it, just like sports and anything else. But it's like but it's not like music or painting where you can like, you can only be abstract so much. But if nobody's laughing, nobody gives a fuck. So it has a desired result in the end. And there can be an art to it who do it well, but that's another level. As far as what happened was my priorities shifted to where what became more important to me was getting another day without drinking, without using. And that's as simple
over everything.
That's over everything. That's as simple as I boiled it down to. And so, and I've talked about.
Are you still writing jokes when you're in that mind frame?
Yeah. Are you kidding me, dude? My whole fucking last arrest is a joke. But I was. you have this pick. This is again where differently, Alex. Where I think a lot of times you're very like linear minded, where it's like you're either in writing mode or you're in living mode. No, you can be doing both at the same time, man.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of what inspires you and how do you go about your creative process. Some people are more formal about it and writing in their notebooks. Some people, I live my life and things filter through me. And if they stick in my head, I might want to talk about it. I might want to figure out some punchlines to it. If something bothers me, I know I probably need to talk about that on stage and figure out the punchlines to that, because that's where comedy can kind of be therapeutic.
Well, like,
but
how do you?
That's solution in the end. You may have some other work to do. But
that's my question. Like, I struggle with that. Like, how do I not sound so much like a nutcase on stage and sound more funny? Like,
you don't sound like a nutcase. Alex, I've never found you to be a nutcase. Here's the thing, man. If you really, as far as you that I've seen you because, I know that I know that this exists in you where I've seen you in the middle of your set question yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That shit, you need to table that shit. What I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with, you can be yourself while also like
being someone else.
It's multitasking. No, it's just multitasking. It's like I want to say like act as if. Be a good actor.
Well, like you just said about me, like, and I've noticed about sometimes I'll be on stage and I'll question what I'm about to say. Like, are you just saying just say it?
I mean, maybe. I don't know these specific moments. Like I said, I think part of this is really who you are, is this second guesser. You second guess yourself a lot. Like I've seen you have a good set and you come off stage and you're like, was that any good? And I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, you got laughs. It worked. You made it to the end. You didn't bomb.
Made it to the end.
But I've also seen you kind of do okay, maybe not great, and you felt great.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't tell you. I I'm not, I'm not your comedy coach. I'm not whatever.
Right.
I respect you. I've known you. We've done shows together. And I've always known you to be kind of, the ultimate second guesser. So if anything, maybe you need to kind of turn some of these jokes into second guesses to kind of mimic how you really think. The fact that you really, because there's something there to be mined for humor.
Maybe mind that second guessing.
People are always second guessing themselves everywhere they go. And I've always felt I don't know what your comic voice is per se. This is how I've described you, and this is going to sound like a real insult. God help me if he ever watches this. I've seen you as the more focused Robert Keith. Because Robert Keith, we both know him, beloved friend. God bless him. He's good. He's back in recovery and stuff. And I love that guy, the person. The comedian, I hope for the best. But I've seen him because I first met him when he was on drugs and he was doing great on his set. I'm not saying his comedy was like, top-notch pro shit, but I was on a show with him at Castagnola's in San Francisco. That's where I met him. And he had a set that made all 13 people laugh, it seemed. I went up there and kind of ate my balls half the time, and I ran the light. And he was giving me shit for running the light afterwards. And the next time I saw him was after he got out of jail, like years later. But I've met you through, seeing you at mics and stuff and kind of being, Concord related. Cause I've been running viddies now for nearly 10 years. But in seeing you, I know that you're focused in doing this, and for somebody who's been doing this as much as you, I've seen also that you've been booked by some good shows, and I've seen you get booked on some shows that are probably like not the top level stuff, but you're headlining them. And I know that somebody thought you were funny and booked you to headline, and then I've seen somebody see those flyers and book you for their shows and get to know you through that. And I've seen you be able to do that, and you didn't like fuck it up. It's like you might have had a bad set here and there. Yeah. And I know that because I've seen this with you, and this is something to keep. This is my only advice I would say, performance wise, is don't show the audience your ass, man. If you're having a pretty good set your first 3 minutes, man, and a joke doesn't work so well, you don't need to let the audience know that, like, oh wow, you win that round, audience. No, right. Move on. Right. Don't pretend like maybe that wasn't even the punchline or something. I don't know. Right. What I'm saying is you don't need to express verbally every thought and every emotion that you have that is going on internally. Right, on stage. That is inspired by any insecurity around your set. Don't do that. I value that advice, and like I've seen that. Like I think I've seen you perform confidently, man. I've seen you perform confidently, and I've seen those windows into like, oh, you're getting a little in your head now. You're getting a little in your head now. But I'm saying the more that you can just table, like you can hear your own head, but you're in your act, man. And in being in the act means being in the moment, not in your head, being with the people. And what I found is that the more that and this is from watching other good comics too, like the ones that whether they're crowd workers, whether they're material based or whatever, you're looking the audience in the eye. And you're trying to get when you do that, it's scary because you might run into that motherfucker that ain't laughing in a sea of people that are laughing. But you don't need to focus on those motherfuckers, man. You focus on the people that are laughing. You might even be able to charm that motherfucker who isn't laughing and be like, all right, but as long as your heart's in the right place and you're trying to get people laughing, that's the bottom line, man. Is that how you bring your confidence? Is that how you get your confidence? Because believe it or not, I struggle with that. Like you said, I struggle with that sometimes. I think the confidence comes from I don't know exactly, but I need my heart in the right place, and what I end up doing. Because again, this was my only rule. When I would go on stage mad, resentful, any of that, and I'm not in there with my heart in the right place to try and channel that into humor, if I'm just up there with like, man, fuck this, fuck that, fuck you, and all that, it doesn't work. When I'm that person off stage, sometimes people find that funny, all right? But I'm not trying to be funny. and it doesn't work. I don't have a persona that translates to being on stage doing that shit. Now I can express some of my angst, some of my resentment, some of that, but I have to do it in a charming, backhanded manner, because when I do that, and it tends to be a little more highbrow a lot of the times. Sometimes people miss it, but it tends to get the smartest people in the room, and those are the jokes that I love when I'm doing something that I feel like, wow, this is like one of my favorite jokes I've gotten to do was one that it was something that bothered me, and I still do it. And it's a risky joke, but I love it. It's the one about the advertising at BART trying to curb suicide, and because to me it's a bad taste. It's just bad taste in advertising. Like I get advertising is such a scummy world of trying to win people over through billboards, through ads on audio and all that shit.
Right.
It's lame. However, when it comes to the nature of suicide, I know that we need I don't know how much ever a commercial has ever helped a motherfucker. All right. I grew up in the 80s, man. They were telling us not to do drugs. You know what we did? We did drugs.
Right.
And as far as like, the campaigns that I remember used to see when they were trying to be more sensitive to gay kids, like it gets better. I'm like, I remember one of my best friends, he's a member of the Meaningful Times with Friends. He's a gay dude, came out in the 90s when it was very scary. We actually had this discussion on our podcast that's about to come out, and being gay, it's like, I know people tried to make it sound like, oh, they're girly men and all this kind of stuff. You had to be fucking tough because it was dangerous.
Well,
right?
now you dealing
with AIDS, but you're also dealing with motherfuckers that want to gay bash and all that stuff. And it still exists today, but the vast majority of people, even the bigots, are not that bothered as they used to be. Because there's still bigots out there, and you got to be careful. But there's a lot more people who are inclusive, tolerant, all that shit. They try to label it woke. No, it's just being a compassionate fucking human being. All right. And things have gotten a little bit more I want to say extreme, but they've changed now that we also have transgenders in the mix now. And we used to call them transsexuals. We used to call them, chicks with dicks.
Transvestites.
It's changed now, and it's transgender, and the language has changed, and the attitudes are changing. And it's probably in the best interest.
Dave, off of that, I'm just curious, how do you transition with your comedy with that? How do you go from a guy growing up in the fucking 90s and 80s, joking with your friends, to now dealing with people on stage? You don't want to offend people. How do you deal with that?
I'm not that scared of offending people. I never have been. I actually say this in my act. I said it just makes comics have to work harder and smarter to find new and innovative ways to offend you without you realizing it. That's a joke, but it's the point. The attitude is you can still say what you want to say, but you have to think about it and back it up. I think a lot of people
are clever about it.
It's not even so much being clever about it. Do you mean what you say? Will you stand behind what you're saying in your jokes? And meaning that, like, if it is just a joke for a joke's sake, okay, then so you're going to back it up with that type of shallow emptiness. Okay, cool.
Like using the word retard. Would you use the word retard?
No, I don't. And the reason why I don't, I don't use it in day-to-day speech. I choose not to. I even might speak up about it because I've become I'm part of the disability community, because people in recovery, addicts and alcoholics in recovery, are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act as a mental illness. And as such, I work with the Comedians with Disabilities Act. I work with people with disabilities. I do shows with them. And it's not because of that. It's because my level of awareness has been raised to a point where people do not want to use that word, not just in that community, but kind of in general. It's one of those words. I don't use that word. I don't use the gay slur anymore. The only slur that I use that people still let us hold on to, but it's not like, it hasn't gotten the full-on canceled word, is cocksucker. I love cocksucker.
I love cocksucker.
That's a great word, and it hasn't been like deemed homophobic. right? You know,
But Dave, like, how do you go from like, say, okay, let's just say you're a person that's not working on that stuff, and you use it with your friends, and
I don't.
you bring it to stage. Does it affect that person? Should a comedian look at what they should be saying on stage, or should they be
Yeah,
themselves?
I think comedians should always be looking at what they're saying on stage. It depends on what they want to say,
Yeah.
and if it's funny, and if
If
it
it's
does,
funny, I think that's the key.
if
If
it
it's
does,
funny.
as they say, punch down or any of that shit or whatever. Are you willing to? Are you willing to? As I hate this phrase, but the kids all say, "Are you willing to die on that hill?"
Right, right.
It's just a matter of, because there are
You,
people. Here's the thing. I was Nina G hates that
right,
word. All right, I work with
right,
her a
right,
lot.
right, right,
Right.
right.
You saw Big J Okerson, and
Right,
Big J Okerson is a hilarious dude. No, not
right.
an ounce of hate in his heart, and yet he will still use some of those words that she's not a
Mhm.
fan of.
Right.
And it's not that he gets a pass or whatever. It's just also Nina, in that kind of moment, it's like she enjoys good comedy. And if ever she had that window of opportunity to speak with that dude one on one on
I get
equal,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
I
it'll
get
come
that.
up. But that's
Yeah,
not,
you're right. It's
you can still,
experience.
and not only that, we grew up in the 80s and 90s where we heard speech. I'm Mexican, Guatemalan, and
Bro,
British.
bro. You
So
know what's up.
I've been called names. I've been called all kinds of names that I'm not, and I've heard slurs
Oh,
all
I
throughout.
want to know what you've been called.
All the Boehner, wetback, fucking all that, shit, and all the, was it gay slurs because I was friends with
Oh
gay
yeah.
people,
That was the
all that
football
shit,
coach.
man. And it's not like I'm so not gay either, man. It's like, no, man,
Right.
I'm fucking, it's, as far as I'm not the most machoist man. Okay, it's not, and I'm not, but I grew up in the 80s and 90s where, yeah, it was, you were more comfortable with intolerance, I want to say. And what's funny is today people are so intolerant of intolerance that they almost become just as bad as the things. It's like you're not supposed to fight hate with hate. You're supposed to fight hate with love
Right.
and compassion. And that means even having compassion for the ugliest parts of the human condition. And that's the only way that you kind of like get through this shit, is some level of compassion for the
You,
ugliness of the
Dave,
condition.
you nailed it.
That to me is what comedy tries to address. If you want to take things to a dark place, it's because you want, and that's what Mark Maron's very good at, and that's what there's other comics that are great at. Bill Hicks was great at that, but we have this current generation too that I want to say that, and I saw this even when I started in comedy, that there was this throwback to like 50s mentality where like you had to write corny ass jokes, puns, fucking lame shit. And then there's a whole generation of people that think they're talking about dating and the airlines like they're the ones who fucking invented it. And racism. Racism has been more brought up in comedy than I think that it's been so over talked about. It's like the same thing with all the legislation dealing with the children, and it's like this overemphasis on shit because these are not that interesting people who haven't had that much experience and they need something to talk about. So they want to take their identity and fight. Like I'm Mexican, I'm Guatemalan, I'm British, but my experience is just inherently American. Yeah, I've had experiences with all this kind of shit because somebody asked me years ago about why I don't talk that much about being Mexican on stage, and I said because it's just part of who I am, but it's not like this part of a part of my identity to exploit unless it's relevant to something that's I'm talking about or happened to me or whatever. And then I made a joke that became a joke that I don't even tell anymore because it's a little too it rubs people the wrong way, but it's a joke about how I saw comics exploiting talking about racism without anything to say just to have an act. And I said, I don't
Well,
like bringing up racism on stage because I just feel like I'm beating a dead Rodney King. And I said that to Black
Jesus,
comics.
Jesus
This was in a
Christ.
car with Black comics. They're laughing. I'm saying
Right,
this to kind of like be mean Dave to them. This
right,
was an incident.
right.
This was a case where I was kind of using the persona shtick because they were having a hacky conversation and I was trying to like give them a little jab, but they all laughed. And then they all said the same thing. They're like, you need to say that on stage. And I said, why? So I can get my ass kicked and you guys can laugh at me more. And what's
Right.
funny is I ended up turning it into a bit that illustrated. I turned it into a bit that was trying to illustrate my point. But the
Right.
trouble is, it's such a point, and it requires an intellectual audience, and I also require it. I kind of need Black folks to be in
Right.
that audience, and not just one. I don't want
Right.
an audience of people
Couple.
looking at them to put pressure on them. It's like I need a fair balance. I've done this joke to Black
Mm.
rooms, and you know what
Mm.
I've done? I've had good responses and I've had confused responses.
Right.
But the times where it's most dangerous is when I'm performing it to a mostly non-Black audience, and there may be like one or two Black. It's usually dudes, and they will hear the wrong thing in the joke that I'm. They're thinking that I'm talking shit about Rodney King. They
Right.
think that I'm being disrespectful and racist,
Right.
and I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, this joke isn't racist. This joke is making a joke about people who use racism as exploitively for comedy's sake. And
Right.
that's
Those
I
people.
say it the whole point. But in the age of Trump, we've dumbed shit down to a certain level where it hurts, it risks hurting too much to tell that joke. So this is actually addressing your other point about, words that you used to use on stage. This was a bit that I do tell this joke now as a cautionary tale, and it does get laughs, but I have to be very responsible with it, because I'm careful with my words and I'm careful with my intentions, and I'm not trying to be indulgent and saying, like, just because I'm some no-name comedian, I have the right to say whatever the fuck I want. No, I have a job, especially if I'm being paid. If I'm being paid, my job is to entertain this audience. And yeah, maybe some of my jokes might make you think a little or whatever, but the bottom line, I'm supposed to entertain you motherfuckers. And this is something Nina G said about me. She can always tell how much I'm being paid based on my performance.
Oh
Because
my
if I'm
God, I can relate
not
to
being
that.
paid much, or if it's for tips or whatever, yeah, I might roll the dice a little more. Yeah, I might be a little more indulgent.
Well,
Yeah,
let
I
me
take some more chances and do some shit.
let me ask you a question, because you've been in the game a little bit and you've probably seen this. Do you notice, because I've noticed this with myself, I'm funnier when I just talk about day-to-day things than try to be like controversial or try to go hard in the paint with like a race-based joke or something.
It's
You know what I
not.
mean?
It's
Like,
well. Here's again. We're coming back to what it is. It's you're kind of trying to draw hard line guidelines, and there are none. It's not
right,
that you're funnier. You're funnier again, so long as what I feel you're talking about comes from a genuine place, man.
okay,
Now you might have like, again, that bit that I told came from a genuine place that was literally
right.
trying to both provoke and make my friends laugh through that, kind of punch to the balls type of humor we have with each other as comics. All right, it was literally green room talk in the car, and then he said I needed to say that on stage. These are Black comics too.
And
That
you did
also,
it right away? Did you do it right away?
and not only that, we had a good barometer of a Black audience at a place called Dorsey's Locker back
Oh
then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, it was wonderful open mic. I love that place, but
Tommy
it was
T's. I could see you kill it at Tommy
Tommy
T's.
T. No, here's the thing, Tommy T's. I'm not at Tommy T's enough to where I have like more of a, like, I love performing when I get to perform there, but I also, the clubs, I have nothing against the staff there or the comics who work there. I don't work there based on my knowledge of their history of how they treat, local comics, their pay wise and all.
Right.
And I'm not, and I have nothing against them. That's the way they want to do stuff. It's fine. But if someone books a show and they want me on it and they're paying me, yeah, I'll be there. And it's not because of much, I just, now I'm at a point where, yeah, I have to take into consideration what I'm doing. And, I'll still do a show, for very low pay or whatever. I'm not above that. Rarely will I do a show for nothing, because it is technically my job. I've been paying taxes on it for the last fucking 6 years. So,
well, Liddy, can I ask you a question, because we are kind of running out of time?
Yeah, man.
I'm fascinated by you, believe it or not. Like, are you, when you do a show, are you changing your fucking set for that show? Or are you just being fucking mean Dave? Are you looking at the show like, oh, well, I'm doing a
Still being
casino up
mean
in.
Dave thing. You keep describing. There's. I can't. I always feel like I don't know who this person is. You think that I am, man, Alex. I'm the same motherfucker that hosts at Woodham's or not Woodham's. Hosts at fucking at Vinny's. That
Right.
you're always timid and scared to do a set
I
at.
am. I am. I am. I gotta
Like,
cancel.
God
My
damn it,
back
Alex,
hurts.
you get that audience, man. It won't be that, and not only that, if there's three people there and you don't make them laugh, it's not exactly a complete bomb. There's three people there, all right? It's really, you're performing more to the emptiness of the room. But yeah, you do want to make three people laugh. Okay, I get it. Or at least mine. But no, as far as my set, I don't a lot of, like, I have an act that I cultivate that kind of evolves in with my time. I rotate jokes in and out. I don't get too in my head about it, but it is like
Why? Wait. Pause right there. Pause right there, Dave. Why
yeah,
do you not get too in your head about it?
because I don't know how I'm. Again, I come from music, and in music, there's a rule that I learned from James Jamerson. He was a famous, not even that famous, but he was a bass player who's played on more R&B hits than you'll ever know that you've never heard of. He was part of the whatchamacallit. He was part of Motown. I forget what they called the band. He's in a documentary.
Okay.
That's an awesome documentary, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it's about
Okay.
Motown. And
Okay.
he's one of the Funk Brothers. He's part of the
Okay.
Funk Brothers.
Okay.
And he's no longer with us, but he was a dynamic bass player who changed the way basses were played just through his playing. And he taught his son, he would tell his son something about playing bass. And he said, if you don't feel it, don't play it.
Okay.
Meaning that if you play what you feel.
Okay.
So
You feel that with comedy?
that's something that I apply to my act. I do my best to, because the more that I'm feeling, like, I don't know what I'm feeling with every set. Some set I want to do my Beauty and the Beast jokes. Some set I might want to feel more of these new jokes or whatever. And sometimes I'm wrong too. But the more that I'm playing what I'm feeling, the more that I'm enjoying myself, and I feel like the audience will connect with that part of me, regardless of how it goes. But it tends to work better. And there's times where I know, you know what, I need to kind of not phone it in, but I need to do my set act, because if I'm doing a clean show, it's not to say that I got to stay within the parameters or whatever, but it's like I have to be a little more formal. So I'm going to want to do more of these jokes that I know are like less risk of me cussing, less risk of me getting something out of pocket.
Have you ever done a clean show where it didn't go like your way, where you thought like you were clean but you weren't, and they fired you or something?
Not fired me. I've had good results with it, but actually, I just posted about a memory of this comic, David Liu, who just passed away. Rest in peace. Really cool dude. He was at a weird competition I did that I didn't know was supposed to be clean, and I didn't even cuss though. But my set was I was intense in that kind of resentful zone. The owner swore up and down that I cussed. And I said, and I was like, I didn't cuss during that set. Even the other comics saw me. They knew I didn't cuss, but I said some fucked up shit. It just didn't involve cuss words. And the lady, the owner, I was supposed to get a free hot dog too. I didn't even get my free hot dog, and I lost. So I was pretty pissed. I left there, and I was mad at the promoter too, because he didn't tell us it was supposed to be clean. I might have adjusted my material. I don't know. This is, again, still in my drinking days, so I might have been a little more. Yeah.
So, just a couple more things.
Yeah.
What would you recommend a new comic to do when going on stage?
Prepare. That's something that I've never was very good at, but
What do
do
you
your
mean
best.
prepare? What do you mean prepare?
Because you're brand new. When you're brand new, you can never be over prepared, because you don't know how it's going to go in those early sets. You don't know what your process is yet. And how many times I can't count how many times I've seen motherfuckers who think that, like, yeah, I want to do this comedy thing, and they get up there and then they're just fucking deer in headlights, and they're like, yeah, what should I talk about? I'm like, motherfucker, you should have had that game plan going in. All right, because you're up there. Why waste our fucking time with you with your loading screen mentally being expressed when it's like, no, you want to go up there. The more prepared you are, the better off those early sets are going to go, and you're already starting to grow that confidence that you desperately need in order to make your sets good.
And you realize how valuable the time is.
Yeah,
You know
and
I
that
mean?
you're showing respect to the people
Right.
there, whether they're
Right.
just comics or whether they're audience members.
People, yeah.
The people that I've seen excel and do better quicker are super prepared, and I'm not a good example of that. I'm more I put in more time figuring shit out the hard way, but I'm saying that the people that I've witnessed who, you know, right now there's some really good comics that are newer that I've seen that really they work at this, and they're also, you know, pretty cool people. Devontre Coleman, he's a new comic. He's out in San Francisco. Dude has a presence and delivery and all that of somebody who seems like I thought he was in comedy. I just missed him for like 3 or 4 years, and he's now over a year into it, but he's got an ability like of somebody. He's doing better than people I've seen at 3 or 4 years.
What's something people shouldn't do? What's some if you're newer to comedy, or even me, 5 years?
I want to know what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't dismiss your material like you shouldn't dismiss a bad set. If you have a bad set, that doesn't mean like, oh, I'll get them next time. No, it means like, no, you had a bad set, motherfucker. What you need to do is figure out why. And it doesn't mean you need to overanalyze it, but just kind of give a little post-mortem of it. And then it doesn't mean you need to come back the very next week and try to have a good, unless it's like a regular mic you're at, you know, often or whatever. But I'm saying like what I used to do is I wanted to get better. I knew in order to get better, I wanted to be good in the rooms that were the toughest. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to figure out how to get laughs consistently in those places, but I wouldn't go there week after week after week after week. I would go there and see how I did. If I had a bad set, I wouldn't go back right away. I would come back maybe 2-3 weeks later, because there's a lot of mics. You can rotate in and out of all that stuff. And what not to do, don't just hang out and party and shit. That shit doesn't do anything. Yeah, you might be, you know, people, this whole thing of like being a good hang, that's if you're like working after a while. But when you're trying to like when you're just trying to sit out, you know, no one hangs out in the 3rd grade after they graduate. And so it's kind of like the hanging out aspect, because I tried, I hung out, I did drugs and drank with these people, didn't do a lick of good. There's nothing. I hung out with people and drank and party with people that are, you know, working like beyond me, that are on TV, that are on podcasts, that are famous and all that kind of shit. And it didn't do me a lick of good.
Remember. I get that. Okay, here's another one just for me. Do you ever feel like you're like anxious, like, okay, I got to do something with this career. What am I going to do with this career? Like, I'm getting that point where I'm like 5 years into comedy, and sometimes
you're 5 years into comedy.
I know, but sometimes I think I'm not doing enough.
You're 5 years into comedy, man. You're still. Here's the thing. Colin Quinn said this the best. You're as many years into comedy, or whatever years you've been in comedy. That's how old you are in comedy. So you're 5 years old. I'm 13. I'm just hitting puberty. So and to be honest, like again, where that's comparative thinking. All right. If you know, if you're gonna spend your time comparing yourself to others, it's just a waste of time, man. If you want to better your station at what you're doing, just look at the people who you respect, who you see have what you have. This is a recovery principle, and try to learn from what they're doing, and try to, I want to say so much like, you know, mimic their work process. I couldn't tell you, because guess what, man? I'm not that successful, Alex. I don't know if you noticed, man. I'm just a local working comic.
But it
I
seems
have,
like you have
I
your shit
have
together. But I look at you and it seems like you have your
but
shit
that's
together.
again, the fact is I could look at it from one angle and be like, yeah, this is, and believe me, I love my life. It's super fucking cool. However, when I'm in the green room at the Punchline around all the past comics, especially the ones passed recently, they're cocky motherfuckers, man. They're like it's just like getting into comedy is like being in junior high all over again as an adult. All right. And you see where people's true character comes in. I like real people. All right. There are people who have been doing comedy, that are my number of years, maybe even less, who are working comics, who, if you invited them to do your podcast, they'd be like, no, I can't really do it or whatever, because they look down on a station of like, unless it's something that's going to get them clout or whatever the fuck the currency is on social media traction or YouTube or anything else like that. They don't want to have just a regular conversation with somebody. To me, I'm like, I've seen you have this podcast for a while. Haven't watched an episode of it or heard one, but I know that it's something that you put out. You put work into it, and I respect you. And I dare say I love you, Alex. You're a cool dude. I like seeing you at stuff.
You crack me up, Dave. Hey, you crack me up.
I know you're working hard, man. I know you're trying to work. Plus, you have a wife. You got a family. You got a job. I know you're trying to figure all this stuff out. But here's the thing: don't put so much pressure on yourself. Have fun doing the work. Like, this is a job. Again, you want to make it a job. It is work, but if it's a job that you want, and again, if you truly, it's just like what Tarantino says about making films. If you truly love movies and you truly love creating stuff, you can't help but make something interesting and make something good.
That's something I wanted to ask you. We've been going over. We're on overtime right now. Just to let you know,
I really like Bill Maher. We're in overtime now.
But I wanted to ask you, like, when you got into comedy.
Yeah, somebody's telling you to stop, man. You had the door.
Yeah, the wife is telling me to stop.
Yeah, man.
But basically, did you think about the acting? Did that come later?
I don't care about it. I mean, I've done some acting. I'm not a good actor either. I'm a best
actor. You don't
want
to do that?
No, I would. I'm a better actor on stage. I'm not a trained actor. I'm in a movie. I'm probably one of the better parts in it
what
too.
Movie?
But I'm not a good actor. It's called Liver La Honda. It's you can find it on Tubi or whatever. I don't really. It's got some good moments. I'm one of the comic relief in it, but
What's
I'm
it
also
called
like
again?
not. Huh?
What's it called again?
Live or Die in La Honda.
Okay.
If you look up Mean Dave on IMDb, you can see everything I've been in. I have an IMDb page, so
we'll check it out. Well, hey, you saw the look on her on the door. She's pretty mad.
Yeah.
That's my producer. That's the wife.
Yeah, exactly.
But honestly, I got you on the podcast because I wanted to talk some movies like Renfield and some.
Let's do that again. We'll do that another time. You the one
really
start all the comedy talk, motherfucker.
I know. I'm really into movies, but dude, you really helped me out. I love the sobriety talk because I've been there, and I think maybe you can help out some comedians just joining, checking out the podcast. And I appreciate Dave coming on here.
Yeah. Totally, man. Thanks for having me. It's been fun talking to you, man. Always.
All right, movies next time. Not so serious, okay?
Yeah, believe me. I will make sure we talk movies. I thought we were talking movies too, motherfucker. But
then we got all serious about comedy. I know.
This is on you. This is on you. It's your fault, man. All right, dude. You have a good one.
Later. Hey, that's been the podcast. I gotta go. You saw the wife. Ooh. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Mean Dave is a great comedian in the Bay Area, and he's taught me a lot. And definitely check him out on a show. He'll be on some shows with me. Check out my Instagram _AlexWoodingComedy. I got some shows coming up. And also check out Heat Club. They usually provide the music with this episode. We didn't play any, so we had to dive right in. It's a long one. And definitely go to silvertongueaudio.org. It's a great website. They got my podcast there, free of downloads, and they got Silver Tongue Audio. Go there because you'll see Dazed and Disturbed. You'll see Oh shoot, NBC podcast, non-player character podcast is a great one. Go to silvertongueaudio.org. You get free podcasts, free a click right there. Thank you guys for checking it out. God bless. Come see me live. It's better than podcast. Thank you. Go check out me, Dave. Bye.